So what's this Secrets of Suffering you might have heard about, and how does it work? Maybe you saw a Reddit post about a player who was addicted to copium. Their build just didn't feel great. And then they added brittle, and all of a sudden their addiction was cured and their build was fixed. You might have come across build guides making dubious claims, like if you add Secrets of Suffering, you'll double your DPS and gain defenses. I mean, let's be honest, if it was really that easy, wouldn't everyone be doing it? So today, I'm going to be talking about Secrets of Suffering, alternate ailments, how these mechanics work, some good use cases, and something that might be even more powerful. But first, before I talk about the alt ailments and Secrets of Suffering, I should probably give a few basics on how elemental ailments work. Normally, an elemental ailment is inflicted when you deal a critical strike with any sort of ability that deals elemental damage. The ailment inflicted is based on the type of damage dealt. So, for example, if you inflict a critical strike with fire damage, you will inflict Ignite. This is a fire damage over time effect that causes an enemy to burn for a duration. On the other hand, if you inflict a critical strike with lightning damage, then the enemy will be shocked, causing them to take increased damage from all sources. Cold damage actually has two elemental ailments associated with it by default. So if you inflict a critical strike with cold damage, you can chill the enemy, which will reduce their action speed, thus causing them to move and attack slower, or you can freeze them, which sets their action speed to 0, meaning they just stand there. It should be noted that non-damaging ailments, things like shock and chill, are scaled by a stat called non-damaging ailment effect, whereas something like Ignite is considered a damaging ailment, so this stat does not apply. So what does all this mean for Secrets of Suffering and for your build? Secrets of Suffering prevents you from inflicting shock, ignite, chill, or freeze. Instead, you gain access to 3 powerful ailments that were added in Delirium League: Scorch, Brittle, and Sap. So let's get into those and talk about why they're so amazing. Starting with Scorch. Scorch is the fire ailment, and it causes enemies to have reduced resistances. This is really cool because it means you don't have to worry about not using a combustion gem. In fact, if you have a higher damage gem, you can remove combustion entirely and get the exact same effect. Unlike Ignite, Scorch is a non-damaging ailment, which means that it is scaled by non-damaging ailment effect, and you can shred up to 30% of an enemy's elemental resistances by scorching them. That's right, it is elemental resistances, not fire specifically. So, if you're dealing mixed damage, such as if you deal fire, cold, and lightning damage, that means you can give the enemy minus 30% resistances for each of those just by inflicting Scorch. On the other hand, Sap is a defensive ailment. It causes the enemy to deal less damage based on the magnitude of the lightning damage. This can scale up to 20%. You can kind of think of this as Fortify, except because it is causing the target to deal less damage, not less elemental damage, not less damage with hits, this is an incredibly powerful defensive layer. And unlike Chill or Freeze, which have limited effect on bosses, you can just fully sap them. So it's pretty awesome. And then finally, the ailment that replaces Chill and Freeze is Brittle. Brittle causes all hits against this enemy to have a flat value added to their critical strike chance. This is incredibly powerful, and it means that capping your crit will be trivial if you're using alt ailments. And this is why Secrets of Suffering is so popular, because it can single-handedly cap your critical strike chance. If you found this video to be either informative or helpful, then be sure to leave a like so that more people can see it. If you want to see more Path of Exile content, including a build where I'm going to be using alt ailments to scale my damage, then be sure to sub to the channel and ring the bell to be notified whenever I upload. On the other hand, if you're simply here because you're sad because your build bricked, then unfortunately I can't really help with that, as my jokes are all terrible. But at least I can offer you a stupid shirt to commemorate your decision to crangle all your items and brick your build. But now, let's get back to talking about alt ailments and where you can get them. The most common way that people use when they're adding alt ailments to their build is the Interrogation Jewel. This will give you Secrets of Suffering, thus disabling your normal ailments and enabling alt ailments. On the other hand, if you don't want to use a jewel socket for that, you can use the heist base of an alternating scepter as your weapon. The implicit here is Secrets of Suffering, and giving up a weapon implicit is honestly a small price to pay. at least assuming that you're a caster and you're going to be using a scepter or a wand anyway. If you're an attack build, this would probably be too high of a cost, and you'd want to go with the interrogation. But these aren't the only ways that you can get the alt ailments. In fact, with the new influences, more sources have been added. For example, there's now an influence mod on boots that will cause you to drop Scorching Ground as you move. This is a great way to add Scorch to your build without giving up your normal ailments. Alternatively, if you wanted to add Sap to your build for an additional defensive layer, you could use the Algor Mortis. This gives you a chance to sap enemies while they're standing in your chilling areas. A chilling area is generated by a skill like Vortex, Cold Snap, or Creeping Frost. And if you're an attack build that's just looking to add Brittle because you want to cap your crit chance, then you might want to consider something like the heist base of a Cold Attune Buckler. If you have some block chance, you'll inflict Brittle on your enemies whenever you block their damage. You can scale this Brittle via non-damaging ailment effect, so you don't need to worry about how hard you are or aren't hitting. These are just some of the examples that you can use to inflict these alt ailments. But what if I told you there's one that causes all of your damage to inflict the alt ailments, and offers incredibly powerful damage scaling for any skill that hits reasonably hard? That would be the amulet Leadership's Price, and it is a bit hard to get as it only drops from one of the heist end bosses. But it is incredibly powerful. First of all, it gives you -3 to +3 to maximum fire, cold, and lightning resists. Obviously, you will want the +3 on this scale, not the -3. 3% to fire, cold, and lightning will be a significant defensive boost that will be especially effective versus endgame bosses that deal a lot of elemental damage, like the Searing Exarch. It then says that you have the Scorching, Brittle, and Sapping conflux while your 2 highest attributes are equal. So, to use my character as an example, I have 243 Dex and 243 Strength. These are my highest attributes, and they are equal. This means all damage I inflict will sap, brittle, and scorch. This is incredibly powerful because it means I don't need to worry about dealing lightning damage to get defensive benefits from sap, while also dealing cold damage to cap out my crit, and dealing fire damage to shred the enemy resistances. I can just deal pure fire damage and get the benefits of brittle, sap, and scorch. Now, Amulet is a competitive slot. You can get a lot of things like Ashes of the Stars, which offers a lot of offensive power. But remember, what you're effectively adding here is an additional gem link in the form of Scorch. Enemy resistances are being lowered, so this is basically an elemental penetration support, which all of a sudden puts Leadership's Price on par with Ulnatol's Vow. In addition to that, you're also crit capping yourself, which means it's now better than Ulnatol's Vow, because you're effectively running an 8-link main skill. And finally, you're adding Fortify to your build via the damage reduction of Sap. It's not literally Fortify, that's just an example. You might be saying, yeah, but what if I could get all of that anyway? And if you're dealing mixed damage, you're using a Prismatic skill, or you're a Trinity build, then you can get all of that anyway, and you don't necessarily need to use Leadership's Price. But for a build like mine, which can only deal fire damage by design, this is an incredibly powerful way to scale my damage. I could use something like Ashes of the Stars, or I could use a +2 gems amulet, and those options would pale in comparison. Alt ailments are incredibly powerful, so I suggest adding them to your build before they get nerfed, because I do think that nerf is going to come sometime in the future. But for now, I've talked about alt ailments, how they work, and where you can get them. The only question that remains is, what build are you going to use them on? If you've used any of these in the past, what build was it? And if you haven't used them in the past, what build are you going to use them on now that you know? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. And again, a special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. If you want to support me, you can do so by clicking the links down in the description below or on screen right now. You can also support by making purchases through my Nexus page. Or if you just want to chill and hang out, be sure to join the Discord. Again, links for everything are down in the description below. Thank you, and have a great day.